Hey, in today's video, we're going to take a look at the GTX280-Y, which is a very interesting small capacity power station. Now, this is not the smallest capacity power station that I have reviewed so far on this channel, but it is definitely the smallest power station. And it's got some kind of unique features, which is what I'm really looking for. Let's find out if it's worth a look. All right, before we get into kind of the specs and what this thing supposedly is capable of doing, let's get it out of the box. All right, got a user manual. Now, the company is called GOOLOO, and it's got a detachable AC inverter, but more about that in a minute. A little nylon carrying case. Here is the AC inverter, and I would assume that you could use this in any 12-volt socket. It's got a 3-prong AC port on it. Looks like a pass-through 12-volt socket on it. And then 2 USB ports. So a Type A, which looks like maybe a quick charge port, and a Type C, which is a PD 30-watt, power delivery 30-watt port. So already this is kind of interesting. And then jumper cables. So it gets even more interesting, right? All right, pretty good heavy-duty Type C to Type C cable. Here's a Type A to Type C cable. It's kind of cool that they actually provide these because you can never seem to have enough of these kind of cables laying around. At least I don't. And then a two-sided little carabiner so that you can actually like clip this to your backpack. Who knew you could take a power station backpacking? All right, so it's got an integrated nylon strap. Appears to be some kind of light here. This just keeps getting more and more interesting. I'll have to give you a close-up of this, but it's got a connector for the jumper cables right here. So 150 watt DC out, looks like probably a 5521 connector. And then it's got a standard Type A quick charge Type A, and another Type C cable right there. And again, this one is a PD 100 watt. And then it's got another 12 volt socket right there. This is just a fascinating product. It's about the size of a brick. Let's try powering it on and see what it does. Nice big display there, 80%. Now we got a light. Let's get into the specifications on this thing. This is a 280 watt hour capacity in a small brick. Now I just recently reviewed the Bluetti EB3A power station, which is about the size of a car battery, a smaller-ish car battery. But I mean, it's easily 4 times the size of this. And the capacity of this being 280 watt hours is actually bigger than the capacity of the Bluetti EB3A, which is 268 watt hours, if memory serves me correct. Now this thing can crank up to 600 amps for starting a car, which is pretty impressive, with a peak of 3,000 amps. Pretty sure none of the other power stations, except the Jump 1000 from Vito Man, that's probably the only other one that could do that. Yeah, so I'm gonna go play around with this thing and find out what it's all about and what it could actually do, and what its capacity really is in terms of usable capacity. So let's jump forward in time and see how all that turned out. And we're back. So it's been a couple of weeks since 2 seconds ago when you saw me, and I've been kicking this GTX280 around pretty good to see what it can do and what it really can't do. And we're going to talk about that now, but first we're going to do a quick show and tell. So this is the Rockpals 300. This is the Bluetti EB3A. Now the reason I am picking both of these up is because the 300 has the same watt hour capacity as the GTX280 at 280 watt hours. The Bluetti is actually lower capacity at 268 watt hours. So, but this is the size of the GTX280 compared to these two guys. Now, I did run this through a DC discharge test, and I'll put some video up here of that. I hooked up a battery tester to the 12 volt port on the side, and I dialed it in to the maximum amount of amperage that I could pull out of this thing. But I got a total of 229 watt hours as a result of the discharge capacity test. And that's about 81% efficiency. And that is right in line with the efficiency of most of the other power stations on the market that are reasonably efficient. So what can you do with 229 watt hours? Well, one thing that you can do that you cannot do on the same watt hour capacity on the Rockpals 300, you could run a typical 12-volt refrigerator in refrigerator mode at 40 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 or more hours, depending on the ambient temperature outside. Now, the testing that I did with that, the numbers that I used for that 10 plus hours, was at about 80 to 85 degrees ambient temperature. And while we're talking about 12-volt refrigerators, this thing will shut down on you if there's no power draw within about 60 seconds. It'll go into standby mode. But it does have a low current draw mode. Basically, you hold the power button and the boost button on for about 3 seconds, and then it'll turn in low power mode, and it won't shut down if you have intermittent power draw. So that would allow you to continue to run things like a 12-volt refrigerator that's got an intermittent power draw. So that's pretty impressive for a little device this size. By the way, if you're finding any of this information useful at all, please consider hitting that like button. Would really appreciate that. Back to the review. Now, the GTX280 by itself weighs about 4.6 pounds. And if you add to that the AC inverter that it comes with, this would bring the total weight up to just about 5 pounds, maybe just a hair over 5 pounds. And frankly, I like the fact that it's modular because in a lot of cases, you may not even need to bring this with you. So if you're going to be out on the trail for maybe just a couple of days, but you've got some camera equipment, some drone equipment, and things like that that you need to recharge, something like this actually becomes much more doable at 4.5 pounds. Versus one of these larger power stations that the size alone would kind of rule that out as an option. Now, one thing that I need to point out is that the AC inverter that this comes with is, as with most AC inverters that are 12 volt like this, it's a modified sine wave, not a pure sine wave. Now, before you throw your hands up and say, oh, well, modified sine, I'm out, has to be pure sine or nothing. But you don't really need a pure sine wave inverter for most things that are fairly low in power draw. And this AC inverter is really designed to have a max of only 110 watts and a peak of 150 watts. So it's got a very narrow use case. The thing that you're not going to want to try to run with this are things like power tools, things with a fairly high watt draw with an AC motor. Those just simply aren't going to work well on something like this. Things that generate a lot of heat, like trying to heat water. There's just simply not enough power in this inverter to do that kind of thing. So what can you run on an inverter like this? This thing is really, I think, focused on being able to provide a way for you to charge your battery-powered devices that require an AC charger. So it might be drone batteries, might be camera batteries, it might be your laptop battery. So anything that you charge with an AC adapter is fair game for this, because that AC adapter is basically acting like a rectifier, and it doesn't care really that this is a modified sine wave. It'll still charge your devices just fine, and they'll run just fine. Then aside from the AC inverter itself, the ports that are on this, and I'll put another close-up there for you on these ports. But these are really very suitable, in fact, perfect for charging all of your DC powered electronics like smartphones, tablets, GoPros, smartwatches, 12 volt air compressors, and USB battery banks and things like that. So the fact that this uses a modified sine wave inverter rather than a pure sine wave really just in this case means that you're saving money because you're not going to be pulling very much power through this anyway. So how do you charge the GTX280? Well, you can charge it from a wall through a Type-C charger port. I'll put some video up here. There's some things you want to be aware of. It does not come with a PD 100 watt port, so you need a charger that's capable of PD 100 watt. So I bought one of these on Amazon and I'm charging it with that, but if you use the cable that it comes with, the Type-C to Type-C cable, which is a pretty decent gauge, you're going to max out at about 60 watts. And you're not going to get any faster charging. You're not going to get to that 100 watts. So if you want 100 watts, you need to have a Type-C to Type-C cable that can handle 100 watts. So I bought one of these on Amazon to test it, and it worked out great. And I'll leave links in the description below if you want to see the particular cable and the charger that I used for that. And as you can see, those do allow the unit to charge at the full 100 watts. Now, another way that you can charge this, it's still through the Type-C port on the side here, is through solar. So I actually did this a couple of ways. I actually took the 100 watt solar panel from Vitoman. It's got, in the book, it's rated at a 45 watt power delivery port inside the bag. So I can charge with that. So I had decent sun yesterday. So I took it out, and I'll run some video of this. And I hooked up the 100 watt solar panel thinking I was only going to get about 45 watts out of the Type-C port. But much to my surprise, I actually got almost 60 watts out of that port. So it's more like a PD 60 watt instead of the documented PD 45 watt. So I was able to charge this 100 watt power supply from 0 to full at 100% in about 5 hours with mostly decent sun through that PD60 Type-C port that's on that particular solar panel. Now, any other solar panel that's got power delivery out, you can charge this with. Whether you can get the full 60 watts or not, it's going to depend on the particular panel. But that's pretty cool. Now, there's another option. It's something like this Eloquenta. This is a miniature version of the 120 watt Eloquenta panel that I reviewed a number of months back. This is a 30 watt version. It is specifically designed for charging USB chargeable devices. So you can't hook an MC4 cable or something. You can't charge like a normal full-size power station that's got like an 8mm or a DC 5521. This is really only designed for things that can handle Type-C charging. But this would allow you to charge in that 20 to 30 watt range. It's going to charge a lot slower, but it would still be able to allow you to top this thing off in pretty much a full day of solar charging if you have that much time. And if you happen to be taking this backpacking for a couple days, you could actually clip this with the included carabiners right onto the back of your backpack and charge this thing while you're hiking. So I thought this was pretty cool, and it's made with all the same rugged materials as its big brother. So I really do like this as a handy small device charger. So in addition to the benefit of this thing being such a small, convenient, compact size, and being able to do things that you would normally do with a quite a bit larger power station, like power a 12-volt refrigerator, for example, I really find this thing to be very useful and to be a pretty good candidate if you need something with a minimal footprint and compact. And the fact that you can use this in an emergency to actually jump your car with the included jumper cables is very cool. So the regular price on this thing is about $270, I believe, which puts it in that same general price range with the Bluetti EB3A and the Rock Pals. But right now they actually have a coupon. So if you go to their Amazon link, and again, I'll put the link in the description below, go to their Amazon listing, you can apply that. I think it's an $80 coupon, which is fantastic. And you can get this thing for just under $200, which makes it actually quite a good deal if you need something portable. So in terms of a cost per watt hour, that's an excellent price for a 280 watt hour capacity power station. So I'm pretty impressed with the capacity of this thing, the price point, and the level of functionality, even the modularity that you get with this removable AC inverter. And I think this is probably worth a look if you need something that's very compact. I don't think you're going to do much better than this. And then also having it be able to jump your car in emergency, pretty slick. So anyway, that's all I got for you. Hopefully you found some of this information useful. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up. Really appreciate that. Consider subscribing and all that other nonsense, and let you get back to your day. I do hope to see you in the next one. Until then, have fun out there.